All right, look, I don't know how else to tell you all this, but Christmas is not a pious holiday, all right? It's a drunken one. And I'm not talking about like in the last like 70 years or so. I'm talking about for hundreds of years, Christmas was the holiday where everyone partied harder than any college frat boy could literally dream of.
Ah, thanks. I needed that.
We're talking tons of expensive food, all sorts of booze, and yeah. And the craziest thing of all is like this 500 years of debauchery is actually why we say Merry Christmas. To make punch, take 5 pints of boiling water and a quart of brandy. Add to it the juice of 4 lemons and 6 ounces of sugar. Mix all together, strain it through a hair sieve, and put into your bowl the peel of a lemon or orange. Rum and gin punch is made the same way. Part 1. Making merry. Neither cider nor sherry, metheglin nor perry, shall more make me drunk, which the vulgar call merry. Woo! That's a choice. According to the Oxford English Dictionary, Merry Christmas can be traced back to at least the 1530s, though I would argue it's safe to assume that the phrase had been in use before then. And while our modern view of the long past is skewed by the Victorians' love of censorship and conservative stuff and, you know, just making shit up to present a version of the past that fits in better with their increasingly restrictive social mores. And yeah, we'll be getting more into that later in the video. The reality is that for most of history, things are not honestly too dissimilar to our life, in that shit was hard for 99% of society, and as a result, we liked to party to forget about how miserable our life was and try to make the most of it. And Christmas Day, turns out, was the day to cut loose.
Like booze ever killed anybody.
How is Christmas merry? I mean, how do people relax and have fun and cut loose today? It's going down in the club. Now, I am being semi-serious though. There were multiple ways you could celebrate Christmas. Small family gatherings, friends and communities throwing a collective party. But one institutional way that is deeply steeped in class structure, because like, let's be honest, we can't actually talk about British history without talking about social class, is how landowners and nobility would host the working class within their community for a huge Christmas feast, which included a ton of meat and of course the traditional plum puddings. The tables were all spread from the first to the last. The sirloins of beef, the minced pies, the plum porridge, the capons, turkeys, geese, and plum puddings were all brought upon the board. There was a lot of grease involved, though. I mean, for a Freudian slip, that's a pretty rock solid one, you know what I mean?
What? It's smiling at me.
Woo. And while the author in this 1730s book does seem to imply that this tradition is going a bit out of fashion, there is actually evidence of nobility hosting Christmas feasts and open houses until at least the end of the 18th century. On January 9th, 1799, Maria Josepha, Lady Stanley, wrote a letter to her Aunt Serena. "We have had our Merry Christmas kept by the laborers and tenants eating much beef and plum pudding." This centralized community-driven party, whether it was hosted by the nobility or just a coming together of tradesmen like Fezziwig's Christmas party and A Christmas Carol, they served similar purposes to the corporate Christmas party or pizza party of today.
Is this enough to get 20 people plastered?
15 bottles of vodka? Yeah, I should do it.
Especially if someone was in a position of power and they were the host of the party. This party was meant to encourage positive feelings and a false sense of camaraderie, or a true sense of camaraderie if you like benefit of the doubt in certain situations, between the working classes, the laborers, and the landowners and nobility. And this can be interpreted both from a positive perspective and also a nefarious one. So for example, for a landowner to entertain his tenants and laborers once a year, it would just simply help him keep control and dominance over them, as well as showing gratitude for their labor. Quote, "By treating the people of the country, gained credit amongst them and riveted the minds and goodwill of their neighbors so firmly to them that no one durst venture to oppose them. Ah, yes, we see that middle management pizza party is working really well. It has been for a long time. We're on to you. We're on to you. It took us a couple hundred years, but we're on to you.
Ryan, Kevin, Phyllis, Oscar, come and take these shots.
Yes. Will do.
Okay, so with all this talk about shitty and manipulative working environments, I do want to take a moment to talk to you all about the sponsor of this video, BetterHelp. Now, as someone who has spent much of the past 3 years of her therapy dealing with and processing the absolute trauma my previous bosses put me through, I am here to say that if you are in a toxic work environment and you aren't in therapy, you should probably be considering it. I mean, I would recommend it. And I think BetterHelp is actually one fantastic option. The way BetterHelp works is that you fill out a questionnaire online, and within a couple of days, they assign you to a qualified therapist. From there, you can communicate with them via video or phone call or direct messaging in whatever way works for you. And that way, it works better for your schedules since not everyone has the ability to go to an office for an in-person session. Additionally, if you don't vibe with your therapist that they assign you initially, it's actually really easy to request someone else. Because one of the challenges of therapy is finding someone that you connect with, whether it's online or in person. So if you are someone who has been thinking about starting therapy, please consider looking into BetterHelp. If you go to the link in my description or just betterhelp.com/Abby, you'll also get 10% off your first month of therapy. And with that, I want to say a huge thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring this video.
Was there ever such a party?
Was there ever such a Christmas?
Was there ever such an employer?
But on the other hand, we have Fezziwig, who threw a party that entertained his staff like his apprentices, but also his local community. In came all the young men and women employed in the business. In came the housemaid with her cousin, the baker. In came the cook with her brother's particular friend, the milkman. Bitches and chickens. This type of party not only helped keep his employees happy, but also fostered community. This importance of treating your staff well is crucial in Scrooge's spiritual reprogramming, because when the ghost of Christmas past tries to brush off the value of this party, Scrooge was quick to defend Fezziwig with, quote, "It isn't that, spirit. He has the power to render us happy or unhappy, to make our service light or burdensome, a pleasure or a toil. The happiness he gives is quite as great as if it cost a fortune." Like, y'all, it's me. Did you really think that I wasn't gonna make copious references to A Christmas Carol in this video? Like, come on. Look at me.
Too late now. Come on, I'll catch you. God save my little broken body!
Along with all of the rich, expensive, and delicious food, a ton of alcohol was served. In the 18th century recipe books, you can find instructions for mulled wine, mulled cider, ales, all of which have connections to Christmas, as well as punch. Punch.
Time enough to sample the punch when you're old and fat like me, eh?
I've talked a bit about punch and its potency on this channel before when we explored crinoline fires and the death of Oscar Wilde's half-sisters after a booze-fueled freak accident at a Halloween party. So let me put it this way, punch, it ain't for the weak, y'all. I don't know what the end of this video is gonna look like, and I'm not looking forward to the hot flash I'm gonna have tonight at 2 a.m. Now, as a general rule, 18th century folks were booze hounds, regardless of their social class, and drinking punch from a bowl, I don't have a bowl, we're in a pitcher, and you'll understand why here in a minute, was part of the general communal party culture, sort of like jungle juice is a part of college party culture today. So by having punch and lots of it at Christmas, it was no different. Now, this 1778 recipe for punch is pretty typical for the period, and it basically comes down to 5 parts water to 2 parts liquor. Whether it's brandy, gin, or rum, I used gin, and some citrus and sugar to taste. And then you put it all in a punch bowl for your party to drink from, and drink they did. Most illustrations of drunken groups and parties from the 18th century will have a punch bowl in a prominent position. This tradition of drinking punch at Christmas continues well throughout the mid-19th century and is even featured in A Christmas Carol, though no one actually likes to acknowledge that. I should not be drinking that much, so you're supposed to go easy on that. Now look, when Scrooge and the Ghost of Christmas Present are visiting Cratchit's home on Christmas Day, there's a lot of emphasis placed, understandably, on Tiny Tim in the adaptations. And we always get Bob's iconic line of,
"It might be pleasant to let them remember upon Christmas Day, who made lame beggars walk and blind men see."
Oh, how
But wait, what is Bob doing after he says that? Bob, turning up his cuffs as if, poor fellow, they were capable of being made more shabby, compounded some hot mixture in a jug with gin and lemons, and stirred it round and put it on the hob to simmer. Y'all, Bob was making punch. Granted, probably poor people punch, but it's still punch. Bob was getting liquored up after church, okay? Cause why? Cause it's Christmas, that's why. So you know the whole
and God bless us, everyone.
Bit when they're toasting Scrooge? Yeah, they're all drinking punch in that scene too. 2 tumblers and a custard cup without a handle. These held the hot stuff from the jug, however, as well as golden goblets would have done, and Bob served it out with beaming looks. And yes, even Tiny Tim drank the punch. The children drank the toast after her. Tiny Tim drank it last of all, but he didn't care 2 pence for it. They passed the jug of punch around for the rest of the scene and flash forward to the end of the book, and guess what happens? Bob's late for work. The clock struck 9, no Bob. 1/4 no Bob. He was full 18.5 minutes behind his time. Why? Might Bob be late to work, you ask? Why would Bob Cratchit, the good, hard-working Bob Cratchit, why would Bob be late to work? 'Cause Bob was hungover. And we know that Bob was hungover, other than, by reading the book, because he tells us. Okay, quote, "It's only once a year, sir," pleaded Bob, appearing from the tank. "It shan't be repeated. I was making rather merry yesterday, sir. Making merry. Okay? We know that Bob was drinking gin because Dickens told us. Does this sort of paint the Muppets Christmas Carol and Kermit in a bit of a different light? Yes, it does, but it's fine. It's still good.
But Mr. Scrooge, sir, we did discuss it. It's Christmas Day. You gave me the day off.
Also, if you haven't seen my video about how amazing the costumes are in that version of A Christmas Carol, honest to God, guys, you're missing out. Because those costumes are freaking amazing, okay? Anyways, back to my point. To make merry, while it can be defined innocently enough with having fun, laughing, and enjoying oneself, it is also absolutely a euphemism for drinking. Okay, my next question for you all is this. What happens at drunken parties? You got music, you got dancing, and you got the sexy times too, baby. Sexy times too. Mulled wine. Add to 1 quart of wine, 1 pint of water, and 1 tablespoonful of allspice. Boil them together a few minutes. Beat up 6 eggs with sugar to your taste. Pour the boiling wine onto the eggs, stirring it all the time. Be careful not to pour the eggs into the wine or they will curdle. Part 2, Christmas Gambols. 1850s mulled wine featuring 6 eggs. I'm so scared. All right, where am I? Going back to the 18th century for a bit, after eating your weight in red meat and plum pudding and getting absolutely smashed on mulled alcohol and punch, turns out I'm a punch girly. Definitely not a mulled wine girly. After all of that, the Christmas gambols came next. Now, no, I'm not saying gambols as in gambling, though they did do that too. I'm actually talking about gambols, Gambols. Now, what is a gambol? According to the New English Dictionary, published in 1702, gambol, as to play or show gambols, i.e. odd gestures or tumbling tricks. A gambling, or throwing up the legs. Think about it.
What now, my lovelies?
A game, Fred.
Yeah, we must have a game at Christmas.
Now, a more innocent interpretation of gambols can be in reference to the games that were played at Christmas parties, like Blind Man's Bluff or Buff or whatever, which in the 18th century also involved throwing around furniture and trying to make the person who was it fall and hurt themselves. Quote, "It is lawful to set anything in the way for folks to tumble over, whether it be to break arms, legs, or heads." All right, then. Snapdragon was another popular 18th century Christmas gambol, which involved putting raisins and almonds into a bowl of brandy, blowing out the rest of the candles in the room and all the lights, and setting the liquor on fire, and then the players would try to grab the raisins from the burning bowl. We descended from these people, folks. Snapdragon, let's go. Or not. Are you gonna burn? Maybe this brandy's no longer alcoholic? Obviously, that's only a game that sounds fun when you're completely wasted. Because as a sober, like, adult in her mom's Christmas sweater, not my actual mom's, but just like a mom Christmas sweater, like, that doesn't sound like a fun game to me. Anyways, additionally, to gamble could also mean to play a prank, like the ones where you knock people over or pull out their chairs. And we see exactly that in the 1750s-ish print entitled Christmas Gambols. Now, a lot is going on in this image. In the background, the upper-class family and friends are having a prim and proper Christmas dinner in the formal dining room. You can see that over here. I am now a weather person. And in the foreground, and the actual subject of the print, we see the drunken help celebrating a much more traditional Christmas in the back rooms and kitchen, with the central motif being the butler pulling the chair out from under the cook as a Christmas gambol. Butler with mischievous look, a Christmas gambol gives the cook. Down on the floor, she tumbles flat, with melted butter scalds the cat. So by definition, there are at least two gambols happening here. One is the prank itself, and the other is that the cook is gambling because her legs are being thrown up into the air. Now, while a bit violent, and obviously alcohol would have only encouraged this behavior more, overall, the Christmas gambols seem innocent enough, right? But I would also argue that within this image, we have a third definition of gambols happening. And like Mary, it's a more R-rated version. And that's sex. It's probably around here somewhere. Right in there, yeah. Because guess what else involves odd gestures and throwing one's legs up into the air? Think about it. Then into the park I straight did repair and found that the place it was thronged like a fair. There was kissing and toying, the ring they went round, and many a smart girl was thrown to the ground. But what they discovered I will not declare, though the comical state caused the people to stare. Hooking up, which may or may not have included extremely dubious consent, like feasting and games and drinking, were also always a part of the Christmas festivities. The tradition of mistletoe encouraged this, and mistletoe is always present in Christmas imagery, especially if the title also has gambols in it. It is also extremely common that there is at least one couple making out somewhere in these images. This tradition is literally the entire point of the print Christmas Gambols, or A Kiss Under the Mistletoe. Bridget the cook on Christmas Day, when all was mirth and jollity, was rudely kissed by Saucy Joe, and that beneath the mistletoe. Now, she does end up hitting him with the ladle in retaliation, and so we love that for her. Like, fucking get him. Get him, Bridget. In addition to the mistletoe being present, and yes, it is another tradition that we maintain at least to some degree today.
Oh, no. Oh, look at that icing on the cake.
Aesthetically, at the very least, there were games that centered around kissing too, like Puss in the Corner, which is, quote, a very harmless sport, and one may ramp at it as much as one will. When even at this game, a man catches his woman, he must kiss her till her ears crack, or she will be disappointed if she is a woman of any spirit. But if it is one who offers a struggle and blushes, then be well assured she is a prude. And though she won't stand a bus in public, she'll receive it with open arms behind the door, and you may kiss her till she makes your heart ache. Yeah, you can also guess who was at fault if it went too far. The groom behind the kitchen door by force makes harmless Nell a...
Everyone, hush there. We shall have a game, a word game. Yes, game. What should it be?
Though the term gambols has been lost by the time Dickens wrote A Christmas Carol, the tradition is still there. In the Christmas scene at Fred's, they play Blind Man's Buff, which, according to Dickens' description, would absolutely qualify as a gambol. There was first a game at Blind Man's Bluff. Of course there was, and I no more believe Topper was really blind than I believe he had eyes in his boots. My opinion is that it was a done thing between him and Scrooge's nephew. The way he went after that plump sister in the lace tucker was an outrage on the credulity of human nature. Knocking down the fire irons, tumbling over the chairs, bumping against the piano, smothering himself in the curtains, he wouldn't catch anybody else. No doubt she told him her opinion of it when another blind man being in office. They were so very confidential together behind the curtains. Get it, sis? Get it? So, if the merry traditions of Christmas can be traced through to A Christmas Carol, which was and is so popular that Dickens has been obviously, incorrectly, credited as, quote, the man who invented Christmas and shaped Christmas as we know it, then what happened Where is my Christmas debauchery? Where are my Christmas gambols? Where is all of my nasty mulled drinks filled with eggs? Well, folks, it is with a heavy heart that I disclose to you all that there's been a war on Christmas.
The fact is, the war on Christmas is real.
Waging a war on Christmas.
War on Christmas. There's a war on Christmas.
It's the war on Christmas.
War on Christmas.
War on Christmas.
War on Christmas.
No, it's not saying the generally cheerful and inclusive happy holidays to strangers. So, that way you don't accidentally assume they celebrate one of the many holidays that happen around this time of year. Because you know what happens when you assume, right? You make an ass out of you and me.
Hey, chingity ching, it's Dominic the donkey.
No. This war on Christmas has gone on for centuries with various levels of success, and that war is a sober Christmas. To make eggnog, open up your fridge, remove the eggnog you purchased at the store, twist off the cap, and enjoy. Part 3, a happy Christmas. Now look, for as long as there have been thoroughly Merry Christmases, there have been folks critiquing the customs and traditions as well. Suppose a pagan should come in to see your way of mirth, when all your cups are full of sin to celebrate Christ's birth. Might he not tremble at your feast and think Christ worse by odds than Baal, Moloch, and the rest of these polluted gods? Was Christ a gamester? When did he to cards or dancing led? Was music found upon the ground where he 5,000 fed? The widespread overconsumption of alcohol at Christmas was consistently considered as a problem, especially by those who held much more conservative and religious views. Hell, it's one of the reasons why the British government tried to ban Christmas in the 17th century.
Every party has a pooper, that's if he invited you. Party pooper.
They failed, but they tried, Cheers to that, right? This is actually pretty good. But it's not until the 19th century that we see this cultural shift away from a fully drunken and debauched Christmas holiday to something much more kid-centered and family-oriented, something that we recognize today. And while there is this persistent idea that, quote, Dickens invented Christmas, blah, 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 hell, the movie that came out about him writing the book was literally titled The Man Who Invented Christmas. I think it's pretty easy to show that he didn't invent anything, but was just sharing customs that he grew up with and had occurred for generations before him. I would actually argue that the man who had a much more profound impact on the creation of a sober and child-centered Christmas, at least in the United States, was the author of The Account of a Visit from St. Nicholas, or what is more popularly known as The Night Before Christmas poem, which was first published in the Troy Sentinel newspaper on December 23rd, 1823. This is the poem that gave us our first modern interpretation of Santa with his reindeer, a sober mother and father with their children asleep on Christmas Eve, and also the iconic ending of
Happy Christmas to all, and to all a good night.
Now, the actual author of this poem has been hotly debated recently, with scholars arguing that it wasn't actually Clement C. Moore who wrote the poem, though he has been credited as the author since 1837, but that it was actually written by Henry Livingston Jr. And I'm just here to say that, honestly, this fact doesn't really matter that much. I'm just acknowledging that I know that there is a debate here in case anyone wants to talk about it in the comments. Ultimately, I think the author is irrelevant to this discussion. However, I do want to point out that Clement Moore grew up in a very religious household and was a religious scholar and was very active with the Trinity Church in New York City. And I, personally, find the use of Happy Christmas at the end of this poem interesting, because I think it actually is telling us something. You see, happy and merry have the same syllables, so he didn't pick happy for the rhythm of the poem, and merry is overwhelmingly the more common Christmas greeting. He also didn't need to worry about any sort of rhyme either, like merry, happy. So why happy? While I've been able to find evidence of Happy Christmas being used as early as 1706 and even Happy Christmas and Merry New Year in 1749, it still wasn't the most common holiday greeting throughout the 18th century. When I was looking through all of 18th century collections online, which is the biggest database of 18th century collections there is, though it does not include newspapers or periodicals, there were only 14 hits that had Happy Christmas. Out of those 14 hits, 9 of them used it as a greeting versus a description. And out of those 9 greetings, 6 were written by folks who were known to be more religious than normal, or the publications themselves were outwardly more religious. Do you see where I'm going with this? So Happy Christmas as a greeting does continue to grow in prominence in the early 1800s. This latest magazine used it as the Christmas wish and greeting in 1824, so the same time that A Night Before Christmas came out. It's also in the 1820s that we see the rise of the temperance movement on a national level within the United States that would go on to influence and encourage similar movements in Great Britain and Europe. And yeah, from what I can tell, though the sources are a bit difficult and a bit dubious, Clement Moore at least had opinions on the temperance movement. I'm not 100% sure if he was a participant in it, but it's not like he wasn't aware of it, you know? And like I said, he was also a pretty religious dude by all accounts. So the motivations behind the temperance movement were centered around the reduction of the consumption and sale of alcohol, because alcohol abuse obviously had a much more profound impact on marginalized groups like the poor than it did the upper classes. And there was a lot of concern about the lower and middling classes consuming too much alcohol, and that can get into the whole class struggle and working and efficiency and the Industrial Revolution and da-da-da-da-da.
And I'll stick with the Union till every battle's won.
Even though the upper classes also drank heavily, but anyways. The temperance movement was also directly connected to religious groups, both in the United States and Great Britain. And it is also in 1823, so the same exact year that The Night Before Christmas was published, that we see, in my opinion, one of the funnier rants against Christmas that came out.
And call off Christmas.
It was published in the Evangelical and Literary Magazine. My proposal, sir, is briefly this: that the best that can be devised be forthwith adopted to abolish Christmas. He then goes on to rant about Christmas a little bit, though he does say that the shooting of the Christmas guns, which is at least a Virginian custom, that was fine because, you know, boys and guns and militia and stuff. In many a family that I know, an enormous bowl of eggnog is brewed and drunk because it is Christmas. Parents, children, servants, old, young, white, black, and yellow must drink eggnog if they can get it because it is Christmas time. The man who drinks too freely all year round for any reason that you please gets drunk at this season because, forsooth, it is Christmas.
The Grinch hated Christmas the whole Christmas season.
Now, this brings us to an interesting turning point, and that is that for whatever reason, despite the popularity and the profound cultural impact of The Night Before Christmas and the dominance of the American temperance movement, we still culturally continue to say the ancient and deeply traditional
Merry Christmas, Charlie Brown!
And it's actually the United Kingdom that has adopted the much more modern and sober Happy Christmas.
Happy Christmas, BFG.
Happy Christmas, Sophie.
Happy Christmas.
Happy Christmas!
Oh, happy Christmas, one and all.
Happy Christmas.
From all of us to all of you, a very happy Christmas.
Now, there are two main theories presented as to why the UK says Happy Christmas more than Merry Christmas. And I'm not going to say no one in the UK says Merry Christmas. Of course, there's someone out there that says Merry Christmas. That's not the point.
Have a very Merry Christmas with BBC One.
We don't say it here. So the two main theories are that the temperance movement is what caused the switch over to Happy Christmas, or social class did. Though I would actually argue they're both interconnected, and so I don't think it's actually possible to give full credit to only one or the other. Now, in a letter written in what I think was around 1870s, we're told outright that the temperance movement in the United Kingdom has had an impact on the Christmas festivities. What reminiscences remained with us of Christmas days at Ham House 60 years ago. Young ladies did not skate then, nor did they wear hats. It was before the time of Father Matthew and temperance and teetotalism. In those days, young ladies laughed and young gentlemen too. Such laughter and fun is never heard now. And it's in the 1870s and 1880s that we see the use of Happy Christmas increase in British publications like newspapers and periodicals. The Watchman and Wesleyan Advertiser printed the distribution of prizes in the end-of-term speeches that were given by Mr. Mundella at the Wesley College in Sheffield in December of 1882, and within these speeches we have a Christmas wish. Let me wish for you a happy Christmas, or Merry Christmas rather, as the old saying is, and a happy new year. So the way that this is phrased tells me that Happy Christmas was becoming more and more trendy and a more popular greeting than a more old-fashioned Merry Christmas. Additionally, in the article How to Have a Happy Christmas published in the Juvenile Companion and Sunday School Hive on December 1st, 1887, author Edward Bailey acknowledges the growing distaste for Merry Christmas. Quote, some folks don't like the words a Merry Christmas, but we can be merry and wise. Besides, the word is an old Saxon one and doesn't mean mirthful, but active, busy, or brisk, and all of those who love Jesus Christ ought to be busy at this time, especially in trying to bless others. He's obviously taking other definitions of merry because he's not factually incorrect, he's just ignoring the other part of the definitions and frankly reading between the lines because obviously a kid's Christian magazine, the discussion of alcohol and drunkenness isn't really going to be a good idea.
Behold, Jesus Christ.
But we can see he's trying to reclaim Mary with a much more sober connotation than what was the more traditional and widespread understanding.
Merry Christmas, you filthy animal.
And up through at least the 1920s, Merry and Happy seem to have been able to be used interchangeably, at least within solidly middle-class folks. In letters sent out in 1924 and 1925 by the General Secretary E.J. Robertson of the Malthusian League, which, by the way, was a group of people who predominantly advocated for birth control education, so that's interesting. The phrase Merry Christmas was used in 1924 and Happy Christmas was used in 1925. However, in 1932, we have the very first ever royal Christmas message written by Rudyard Kipling and was given by King George V. And guess what it said?
I wish a happy Christmas. God bless you.
So here we are, with the first radio Christmas broadcast in the United Kingdom, and the highest ranked person socially, politically, and spiritually has just wished everyone a happy Christmas. Which makes you wonder why. Was it because Happy Christmas was just the trendy thing to do within the aristocracy and he said that and people adopted it because they wanted to sound more royal? Or is it because as the head of the church, he felt compelled to avoid encouraging the citizens to drink, so he opted to say Happy Christmas instead of Merry Christmas? I don't know. There's no way I think we can know. But I do think we can agree that the royal use of Happy Christmas in the 1930s solidified its popularity and fully pushed Merry by the wayside. And unsurprisingly, this tradition has continued with the royal family for almost a century now.
I wish you all a very happy Christmas.
Like, you're the royal family. Can't you all speak your own language? Like, oh my God. I'm just taking the piss, guys. It's fine, I'm joking. Now, listen, whether you say Merry Christmas or Happy Christmas, the boozy origins of this holiday are still all around.
Christmas is all around me.
Think about it. All of our traditional holiday drinks, whether it's mulled wine or glögg or Gullwyn or mulled cider or eggnog, they're all alcoholic in nature. Though you can get alcohol-free versions now, which, again, delicious. Our fun and wild Christmas and New Year's parties are actually ancient in their origins and revelry. 2, 3! And while the idea of being kissed by a complete rando underneath mistletoe, honest to God, makes me want to vomit, at least the presence of the poisonous little shrub harkens back to the Christmas nights of our ancestors. I mean, hell, even just like calling the week between Christmas and New Year's like cheese or couch week, that also is like a throwback to our traditional, like more debaucherous Christmas holiday festivities. And so with that, my friends, no matter how you choose to celebrate this festive season,
Well, Schnickel is here. I judge her here as impish. Oh!
I want to wish you and yours a merry and happy time of it, and a wonderful new year. This room smells like booze now. In the club, we all fam. Oh God, that thing is so heavy. Well, hey there. Welcome to my Christmas party, eh? Who wants up? There we go. Metheglin. Okay. Drink responsibly. He's groovy me now. Well, not good. Not good. But yet I'm taking I have to make an educated decision here, guys.